Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Andrew DiCecco, who's been along for the ride all season long, is taking a look at this Eagles team at the bye week. Some of the things that he thinks needs to be fixed. What are the standouts? What's good? What's not? As the 8-1 Eagles head into the bye week, then Andrew, a stretch of games. It started with Dallas, really. I mean, they played Dallas. They win that game. They'll finish up with Seattle 5 weeks or 6 weeks from now after the bye week, where they will play 6 straight teams that will likely be playoff teams. They had Miami before that, by the way. They're going to be a playoff team. Heck, Washington might be a playoff team, so we'll see. But overall, I will start with this question for you, Andrew. We were asking people this yesterday. I want to get your take on it. Fill in the blank. The 2023 Philadelphia Eagles so far are, how would you describe them?
I think they're a team that has yet to meet expectations, and that's saying a lot considering they're 8-1. I think when you look at it in terms of last season, they were able to put teams away a lot more convincingly. This team's winning a lot more narrow victories or finding different ways to win. Obviously, good teams do that, but they have yet to really hit their stride, which is kind of scary when you look at what they have and the schedule upcoming. But I think Nick Sirianni and the Eagles are really starting to piece this thing together and find their footing. And you saw that against Dallas. That's a tough game that a lot of good teams, or that a lot of teams would find a way to lose. But teams like the Eagles, they find ways to win games, like against the Commanders, against a tight game against the divisional foe like Dallas. But they have yet to really hit their stride. So that's why I think that they have yet to meet expectation, which is kind of a good problem to have.
All right, so if you just say they haven't hit their stride, you're around this team, you've traveled with them. What are some things that they still need to work on, improve, tighten up maybe to kind of hit that stride?
Yeah, there's a few things, right? I think red zone efficiency has been markedly improved since the beginning of the season, but there's still areas of opportunity there, right? Turning the football over, that's become problematic. That's something that they were really good at last season, avoiding turnovers, costly turnovers, and they've had to sort of atone for them late in games and find ways to pull these out because they've made uncharacteristic mistakes of a Nick Sirianni team. I also think that when you look at it defensively, right? Defensively, they created a lot more turnovers at this point last season, and they just haven't. I mean, outside of Darius Slay, who has a couple of interceptions, Reed Blankenship, they haven't done a ton. There's been some forced fumbles in there, but there hasn't been these game-altering plays, sans that Reed Blankenship interception in Washington that really turned the tide there of that game. But you would like to see more defensively because the offense has really rose to the occasion by and large. And I think defensively, while Sean Desai's done some really good things, you'd like to see some more in the turnover department.
What is your opinion of when this secondary is, there's a lot of people that are looking at Slay and Bradbury. Have they slipped a little bit? Are they the same player? Are they better than they were last year? You added Byard to this. You mentioned Blankenship. You're going to get Roby back. But everyone seemingly looks at this pass defense and says, you got problems in that secondary. You got problems with the pass defense. Do you agree that that is a concern over the final, stretch of this season?
It's a concern only because it wasn't just one or two games. You've seen these sort of blemishes arise at the most inopportune times. And someone like a James Bradbury, who was an all-pro last season, he's really struggled this season. And sometimes at that position, Mike, at the cornerback position, which is one of the hardest positions on the football field to play, when you hit 30, sometimes that turns quick. Like, so you're not as quick. You're a kick slower than you maybe were a season ago. He's also committing a bunch of egregious penalties.
Yeah.
Slay, I thought, has been really good this season, playing a lot more physical and being willing to come up and make these hits and being more aggressive than we've grown accustomed to seeing. So I don't know that anything that he's a cause for concern at all. Blankenship had a tough game in Washington, but he's a ball hawk. He's a smart player, and I've said time and time again, what he lacks in overall athleticism and fluidity on the back end, he makes up for with his astute football intellect and instincts. And Kevin Byard is a player that is going to I haven't seen enough. Granted, the 2-game sample size that we've seen from him hasn't been overly. I haven't been overwhelmed with what I've seen, but maybe after the bye week, he gets a little bit more acclimated and he becomes more familiar with Sean Desai's defense, and they start to come together. I still think that was a good trade. They had to get a safety in there, and if he gives you production even a little bit more than Terrell Evans, that trade's a benefit for the team. And then the slot cornerback position, that's going to continue. Look, Bradley Roby, everyone keeps saying they're going to get Bradley Roby back after the bye. Well, he hasn't played a ton. There hasn't been a large sample size there to say that he's going to be a definitive answer, that he's going to shore that area up. Besides that, Sidney Brown and Eli Ricks, those are two players that they've stepped in and contributed admirably, but they're out of position. That's not what they're here to do. Eli Ricks is an outside corner by trade. Sidney Brown is a safety, and they've sort of been asked to step in and fill that role due to need and necessity, and they've tried to take to that role, and they've drawn some tough assignments. So you would like to see Bradley Roby back because he's a veteran. He's played that role before, and then you get Eli back as that third outside corner. He's obviously ahead of Josh Jobe at this point, and Sidney Brown playing that box nickel role and the third safety role. So I think, all that to say is I think as we move further into the season, this experience and these going through this adversity is going to help build the secondary as they move forward.
Yeah, Nakobe Dean out. I want to get your take on that position now and how big of a loss you think that is. Or is it, hey, you know what, Dean liked the guy, but Nick Morrow was playing better, and they're actually better off with Nick Morrow there. How did you see that position kind of materializing after the bye when a lot of times teams do a lot of self-scouting? They'll make kind of tweaks as they watch a full, 8 games of tape or 9 games of tape.
Yeah, it's a tough break for Nakobe. Good kid and someone who has a lot of promise, and the depth really takes a blow here. But to be honest with you, the best linebacking pair that the Eagles have had this season is Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham. Zach Cunningham's been one of the best players on the Eagles defense and one of the most pleasant surprises through 9 games. And those two players right there, I think, are your best answer at solidifying that second level. Have they had a hand in some of that back 7 pass coverage deficiency? Absolutely. But I think that's the best pairing that they're going to have at this juncture. And as for Nakobe Dean, it's from the Eagles' perspective, everything that they put, all the resources and all their plans, they built that around Nakobe Dean. And when he was available, he was sort of underwhelmed. He didn't really stand out, but he needed those reps. And so the depth hurts right now. They had a 3-man rotation going, and right now Christian Ellis becomes the de facto third linebacker. I don't think that they're going to rely on him that much. He only played 12 snaps in the 4 games that Nakobe Dean missed. But again, I think that the depth right there and finding that rotation and these certain situational roles for these guys is where they're going to take the biggest hit.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 from the InsideTheBirds.com. And, of course, you've been around this team a lot. You look at this offense, and everybody seems to think, oh, it's not the same as last year. There's something missing. The scoring would say differently. The yardage would say differently. Do you still think that the offense has more to, obviously you can get better, but do you look at the offense as it's not as good as last year?
It's not, because it's A.J. Brown-centric, and the running game that really started off the season on a tear has sort of fizzled out. And there's reasons for that. And I think when you look at it, a lot of it stems from, not having Cam Jurgens, who was really good this season, moving guys out of the way from that right guard spot. Hurts from a continuity standpoint not having him there and asking someone like a Sua Opeta or a Tyler Steen to step in there and fill that void. But a lot of it also stems from Jaylen Herz dealing with that knee injury, where he's been such a threat to run the ball and a valuable asset being that +1 that teams had to account for and honor, and to not have that, it sort of diminishes what the Eagles are able to do from a running game standpoint. So there's a lot of different things at play here, but you would like to see the running game be able to really take shape as we move forward down these tough stretch of games, because Jaylen's really, I think he's only averaging just a handful of carries, maybe 4 a game now, and you don't want to see him have to take to the ground too much and preserve his health. And he's been winning games from the pocket, but you have to tap into to another dimension of your offense to really open it up and unlock it, and so it's able to live up to its full potential.
Do you think the running game is suffering because of personnel, because of scheme, or is it simply, hey, because of how heavy they rely on RPO, and teams just aren't buying that Hertz is running this year? The running game is not a traditional running game, and it's just not the same as it was those first 4 weeks, kind of pre-injury.
That's exactly it. As I was saying, I think a lot of it has to do with Hertz and teams not necessarily honoring it the way that they have in the past due to the injury. Looking at the running back situation right now, aside from Miles Sanders, I mean, DeAndre Swift's a better player than Miles Sanders. Kenny Gainwell's still here. Boston Scott's still here. The personnel is about the same, if not a little bit better than last year. And the offensive line, yeah, you've missed your right guard for a while, but I think a lot of it, like I said, really stems from teams playing them differently because you're not accounting for Hertz as that +1.
Yeah, because DeAndre Swift, 3.4 yards per carry since week 4, 57th in the NFL. This is from our buddy Jeff Kerr at CBS. The Eagles are averaging 3.4 yards per carry since week 4. That is 30th in the NFL. So they have fallen from where it looked like in the beginning of the year that they could just run whenever they felt like it to now one of the worst rushing teams in the league. And I guess I would ask you, do you have any evidence to think that, hey, in the second half after this bye, that run game is going to get going because Jaylen Herz, the knee, some rest, or is this kind of life of where the Eagles are right now, relying on pocket passer Jaylen Herz to win them games?
Well, it'll certainly get a little better. You get Cam back. I think this week off will help Jaylen Herz, and Jaylen's going to run when he has to. He does what he has to win. And, you take this opportunity to self-scout, and they may tell you that there's nothing wrong with the running game, but the tape obviously shows something different. And in order for, like I said, for the offense to be fully unlocked and reach its potential, they're going to have to tap into that running game. And I think that you're going to see that, and Hertz is going to run a little bit more and open things up because you can't help but notice how teams are playing the Eagles differently. So you just look at week 2 with the Vikings. DeAndre Swift had 175 yards. Cam Jurgens is a good player, but he's not going to make the difference from DeAndre Swift getting 40 yards a game to getting 175 yards. A lot of it has to do with how teams respect the quarterback and his ability to change the game with his legs. So that's really what it is. And I think that the Eagles have to find a way to get that going, and that starts with Hertz. He's going to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, Hertz has got a lot on his plate right now. I saw, we were talking about this Monday, Andrew, but he's right now, depending on what book you look at, the favorite for the MVP. Do you think that Hertz is playing the quarterback position better this year or last year?
I think he's playing it better this year because some of the throws that he's making, I can automatically go back to that Jets game when he had someone hanging on him and he threw a tight sideline pass. The pass to Devontae Smith against Dallas was one of the best throws I've seen Jaylen Hertz make. He's doing different things. He's gaining yards with his legs when he has to, but he's really evolving as a pocket passer, and everything's open to him. He's really his game just continues to elevate. There's not one thing that teams can take away from him because he's able to do it all. He's able to make every throw. He can run when he has to, and he's confidently fitting the ball into tight windows. He can. I didn't know that there was a further a higher elevation for his game, but we're seeing it right now. He's my pick for MVP through 9 games.
There you go. All right, your pick for MVP, and you can obviously look to see if they lean on him even more in the second half of this season because I don't know, man. That knee is going to be something that it might get better over time. A bone bruise, we hope that's all this is. We'll see if maybe in the back end, in the playoffs, do they use him to run a little bit more? Do they use him in these 5 games here where they know we're in the back end of the season? We'll see if they expand his role. But as Andrew said, he's playing the quarterback position so well, they almost haven't needed him to do more with his legs. So this will be interesting to see how it unfolds. Kansas City is up next. It's a next Monday night, not this Monday night, next Monday night. So no Eagles this Sunday, no Eagles next Sunday. You'll see them on Monday Night Football next week. Andrew, appreciate it as always, pal. Good stuff.
You bet. Talk soon.